All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Telivy MSP podcast. Very, very excited to introduce our guest today. Bill, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Bill Campbell. I'm the CEO of Balance Logic and MSP based in Maryland.
Awesome. We're Telivy. We're based in. I'm based in San Jose, but I'm Jeremy, head of partnerships at Telivy, and we're an automated cybersecurity risk assessments platform for over 100 MSPs. MSPs like Halt Data Solutions, Triad Networks, and Level 5 Management love Telivy because MSPs use Telivy to run automated risk assessments to win new clients, provide quarterly security reports to existing clients, help them meet compliance, and reduces risk assessments that take 7 to 8 days manually to under 5 hours with Telivy. All right, so let's jump right into it, Bill. Can you tell us about Balance Logic and the managed IT services that you provide?
Sure. Balance Logic is actually a little bit more than an MSP. We're more of a solutions provider. We like to say we're unified solutions for a unified vision. So we have a bunch of different divisions in the company. One is managed IT, cybersecurity, web and creative services, as well as marketing. But yeah, we focus on the SMB, specialize in managed services, managed IT, and yeah, we work with government contractors, the healthcare industry, retail, manufacturing, uh, pretty much the whole gamut.
Very, very interesting. And I'd love to dive into that uniqueness of Balance Logic too. So typically we talk to MSPs who provide IT, cybersecurity, managed services for businesses, become the virtual IT department, secure their networks. You mentioned marketing. Where does marketing fit into your business model at Balance Logic?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. We kind of pioneered this business model. I started the company 19 years ago. August was 19 years, and we originally started out in yeah, it's super exciting. 20 years is next year. So the original business model is really taking from a large company, the business operations department of a large company, and that business operations department consists of HR and admin and IT and web and all those different components, all your back office, if you will. So back then, I was like, okay, whether you're a small business, medium, large business, 1 or 10,000 employees, you have to have all those services across the board in order to maintain and grow your company. So I came up with the idea of taking that business operations department or business operations division, pulling it out of the large company and creating a small business model. So the strategy was every 12 to 18 months, we would add another vertical. So we started out with technology and accounting and bookkeeping services, and that was in 2004. And then every 12 to 16 or 12 to 18 months, we would start another line of business or we would create a line of business through an acquisition. So understanding that, every organization needs business operations, right? Just like in the military, you have your front end fighters, your grunts, your infantrymen, infantrywomen, whatever it may be. But they can only survive a certain amount of time without the support element. So we look at it from that point as well, right? So business owner is very good at what they do. They can continue to run their business, but at some point you have to have that support in order to maintain it and move your company forward. So I took that approach and created all these divisions, and now we offer those services as a unified solution to our market.
Wow, very, very interesting. It almost sounds like any business owner can come to you and you provide the support of the entire company that they would normally have to learn themselves, have to hire, manage, build, like all of that. But you basically provide this entire support engine for them to just attach onto their business. I'd love to dive into your customers and your customer personas in a bit. Before I get into that, I'd love to just understand who are your customers? Do you have a focus? I believe healthcare and I'm sorry, I'm trying to find that part in my notes. Small, medium businesses, healthcare practices. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your customers, and then also maybe if you could share a customer success story with us, end to end. What happened? How did you solve their specific business needs?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the business model, it's much easier to manage one person or one company than it is five. So partnering with Balance Logic, you have one company that offers unified solutions, whereas you have five different company, offering five different services, five different invoicing, all those things. So our customers are, we don't call them customers, we refer to them as clients, because customers in our mind is real transactional, one-time thing, where we like to build long-term relationships. So we sum it up as, any client or any organization that is looking and is serious about really growing their business. A lot of companies, they're happy with what we call living paycheck to paycheck, so to speak, and that's fine. They don't want to reinvest in the company to really grow. They're happy in what they do, and that's absolutely fine. But our target audience is really organizations who want to move forward. They want to grow. They want to expand. They want to stay out with technology. They want to stay out with marketing. And that's who we go after. And that's a variety of different industries. It could be manufacturing. It could be government contractors. We work with retail operations that open up multiple stores. They decide to grow. Organizations who grow through M&A, mergers and acquisitions. That's a whole nother story. So really the bottom line is organizations who really have an interest in growing is who we target. And it's a challenge, right? Because there's so many different verticals that we offer and there's so many different industries.
Yeah.
So it's always fun and challenging to do our internal marketing and targeting. And we kind of do it on a season basis, if you will. We have summer, spring, fall, winter. So we'll pick different time periods and focus our marketing on those specific
Hmm.
verticals that we offer. Sometimes doing parallel campaigns. Uh, Success stories. So one of the ones recently is we have a car dealership, and then there's new legislation out now that is basically treating car dealerships or lenders just like banks. So they have to follow certain compliance and governance rules. So we were able to help them put in the proper cybersecurity tools and services and reporting and governance they needed, which really made them way more competitive. Not just
Mm.
that, it really allowed them to reduce their cybersecurity insurance rates because
Oh,
they were able to meet what the cybersecurity insurance provider was looking for, so their liability was decreased.
wow, that's very, very cool. I'm curious, just in that case, how did you help them meet compliance? What was your process, your problem solving process?
Yeah, good question. So we always do what's called QBRs, quarterly business reviews. Some call them technology business reviews. So we meet with our clients every quarter. And, in coming with that, part of our process and that is not just to let them know what's going on in their business, whether it's good or bad, where we stand. We go through all the metrics and things like that and challenges. And then if there's anything new in the industry based on, a pest analysis, that we bring that up and we were like, hey, look, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but this new legislation is coming out in X
Mm.
period of time. They're like, yes, we were notified by corporate. We're not sure what we need to do. And we're like, okay, this is our approach to get you ready for that. And then when it hits, you will be ready. And then we
Wow.
reevaluated their cybersecurity insurance as well. So it's through meetings, through communication, and then through assessments to determine where they stood with this new guidance.
Interesting. How do you do the assessments? As I mentioned before, Telivy, we do automated risk assessments. So
Mhm.
I'm particularly curious about the technical side of that.
Yeah, it's a combination between manual and automated. I mean, we have lots of experience in doing assessments. I mean, I've been in the industry 30 plus years, at all facets of IT and cyber. So we put together our own internal process based on experience with work with clients over the decades. And then we use automated tools as well. And then what we do is we combine those results together into one report. And then we sit down at the table and go over that with the client.
I see, I see. Now I'm gonna put myself here and do a shameless plug. Folks listening, Televy combines all of that data, all of those tools together into an all-in-one dashboard, all-in-one report, white label report presentation you can share at those QBR's quarterly business reports. Um, so, okay, but moving on. I'd love to learn about um, what are you, I mean, you have such an interesting business model spanning across so many industries as well as verticals. How do you communicate with your clients, do you find any similarities or differences of customer personas, personalities, needs, top of mind issues that you find that maybe differ or are similar across all your different clients?
Yeah, another good question. It's every business needs the same thing. Most businesses have the majority of the same challenges, majority of the same pain points.
Hmm.
Where the challenge is for us is the persona of the organization. Where some, like I was saying before, some they're not interested in growing. So they're
Mm.
happy with the status quo, and that's absolutely fine. Therefore, they're not a fit for us, right? Because our strength is looking at what you have, finding ways to make it better, finding ways to make it more efficient, more effective, and therefore help you grow, you know, your reputation, your bottom line, your revenue, profit, all that. And all those different services allow us to do that. So it's really based on persona. I mean, there are instances where clients are like, "Hey, I have this budget. No matter what, I can't go over this budget," and we work with them to see what we can do within that budget.
Mm.
Some clients we have are like, "Hey, I know this is important. I need to do it. There's no budget. Do what you need to do, and let me know how much it costs." And obviously, we love those clients. But yeah, the challenge is the persona, and it's really driven from leadership. We've had clients where you know the staff, the team knows what needs to get done, the challenges they face. They push it up to management, and management's just like, "Hey, that's not important to me, so we're not going to do that."
I'm imagining because again, going back to your business model, if it's based on the client and customized for each customer persona, how big is your team? Does that become hard, right, on your team or a challenge for your team, right? Because that sounds like a lot of work to custom develop solutions for each client, and even in different verticals, right, and in different industries. How do you reconcile that as the CEO?
Yeah, so I mean, sometimes it's a challenge, but it's not as much of a challenge as you think because it all
Hmm.
comes down to leadership. You know,
Hmm.
I, we're our whole culture is about being cross-trained. It's about being ready. It's about looking, forward. One of our mottos is we have to evolve faster than our clients. So we're always trying to stay a step ahead. So everybody knows, everybody in the team is prepared. We're always cross-training. You have challenges when things start to overlap, and then you have, challenges at the client where there's disagreements on this and that. Um, just like every other business. But as far as handling growth or handling different ways clients interact, it's not really a challenge. I mean, we have our, like we say in the Marine Corps, our 10%, where you have the micromanagers that want to know every little detail of everything that you do. And then you have clients who are completely hands off. But we're prepared for that because we always talk in our weekly meetings about, hey, this is this client's persona, and this is how we have to adjust or adapt to them. So I don't see it as a huge challenge.
Very, very cool. I want to dive more into your leadership principles towards the end, but so just wrapping, this section up here, where did you get the idea to innovate your business like this, right? Because it's not standard, I would say, right? Most
No.
folks, they only provide IT, they only provide cybersecurity. Some might even just do it as with a break fix model, right? And don't even do managed services yet. But like where did marketing come from? And it, I feel like if I were to put myself in the shoes of a typical business owner, it would be scary. It would be very scary to uh, uh, try to branch out, right? And maybe something that I, as the owner, am not familiar with, right? So where did that come from for you?
So interesting. It started a long time ago. Obviously, I've been in business 19 years, but the kind of idea came from me. I was an IT manager at the time, and I worked for a voice over IP company. And I got involved in, I was doing just IT, but I've always been involved in processes and procedures and how to make things better. It's just how my mind works. And I got involved in something called order administration. And I was like, well, this is really interesting. So, as the IT manager, I was supporting our products division in the company of bringing orders in and how to process those orders and things like that. And then I got really good at doing processes. So I was really working over there. And then I learned, it hit me, you know, how does each department communicate internally to the company? And there wasn't any. And I was like, well, this is interesting because if you look at that, if each department in a company, IT or HR or admin or finance, if they're not communicating effectively internally, and every business has those, departments or, obligations they have to do for their company, imagine what a small business owner would think or feel if they didn't have those in order for their entire company, if they're not in a regular company internally, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so I came up with that idea. I was like, okay, well, why don't I try and create a business model out of this and offer all these different services a little bit at a time through growth and alleviate that issue that small business owners and CEOs have of how do I manage these other aspects of the company? Most people start a company because they're very good at what they do, right?
Yep.
You
Exactly.
know, I mean that's common. So that's great. You're good at what you do, but what about every other part of your business? So if you focus on what you're good at, because that's what we fall back on, right? If we don't know what to do, we fall back on what we know and what we're good at. Then other parts of their business are going to fail, or they're just not going to happen, right? You're not going to
Yep.
hire somebody to do
Exactly.
it; they're just not going to get done. So if you don't move forward, there's no growth. So I figured, let me create a business model of that. And the shining light was at another organization, the simple task of hiring an employee was so disruptive where we would have staff come in on their first day. They wouldn't have a computer, they wouldn't have an email account, they had no HR record, and they'd be sitting there
Hmm.
for a week at a time not doing anything.
Oh
And
wow.
that's really when I was like, wow, this interdepartment processes would really fix this problem. And then I did it in the organization I was working at, and it really was like, oh wow, I could really move forward with this business model. And I just
Oh.
jumped off with it and kind of created the business out of it.
That was balanced logic 19 years ago.
Correct. Correct.
Wow. That's very cool. How did it get to marketing?
How
I'm
did it get to
still curious.
marketing?
Yeah, trying to
Well,
connect that.
because yeah, so if you step back and you look at, as put a business owner's hat on and you look at what are the services I need to implement in order to have a sound, effective, efficient company that is able to grow. And if you whiteboard that and you put all
Okay.
these services down, marketing is one big thing, right? HR is one big thing. IT obviously is a big thing. Accounting and bookkeeping is a big thing. So I just whiteboarded all those and said, if I look at all the business operations of an organization, what are those components? And if you map that to a large company who has all these different departments within their company, they pretty much overlap. So the strategy was, okay, we'll start with this, we'll start with this, look at market research, look at, what the wants and needs are out there, and then add another vertical every 12 to 18 months. And that's exactly what we did.
That's incredible. I'm still like trying to fathom that or coming up with that or having the confidence, right, to go, oh, I can do that. I can like go add a completely different vertical, right? I can solve actually like all of these problems that a business owner has with these processes. Like, um, I guess, yeah, okay. So I'm curious, in those 12 to 18 months, what goes on? For you to be able to add a new vertical? I'm very curious. Do you have to learn it yourself as the founder? Do you have to hire the right people? Like, is this very senior people? Do you have to do some test runs with some beta clients, right? Clients who trust you to try things out first. Yeah, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination, right? So I'm very fortunate. I think this is part of why it works. Pat myself on the shoulder real quick, but I'm a very creative, very process oriented person with a wide range of experience, which is really why this works, right?
Mm.
But learning it myself, doing it, we started out with partners. We did strategic partners to fill in the
Mm.
gaps. Based on market research, we said, okay, we're planning, we have 12 to 18 months to do this new service. How are we going to do it? How are we going to, supplement the existing staff to be able to, deliver and execute? And in the beginning, it was hiring strategic partners, working with those. We went through a phase of hiring contractors to do it because there wasn't a lot of work in each of those verticals, right? As you're growing,
Yep.
so you just hire contractors or you do create strategic partnerships, and then when you generate enough revenue, you have enough market share, then you can start bringing on teams, and then just slowly but surely
Very
move forward.
process driven.
Yeah,
Very, very cool.
absolutely.
I'm curious, you have this, brilliant business model, you have the process to implement it, you have all of these services, right? These different departments that you offer. How do your clients react? Do the client's needs match with, oh, like I'm a client, I actually just need this piece, right? This department.
Mhm.
And then you have a bunch of clients like that. Or do you have a bunch of clients who say, no, we need everything actually, right? Or we need like 70% or 90%, a lot of it, right? I'm curious what the needs, how they line up.
Yeah, it's a mix. I mean, we have some clients that just use IT, some that just use marketing, some that just do web.
Wow.
But that's a foot in the door, right? So you get
Mm.
in through one of the services, you explain the business model, you talk to the business owner, you learn the business, you learn their challenges, and say, hey, you know what? This is the brand of our company. We can offer this service as well. And because you're getting a additional service with us, you get that multi-service discount. Right. So that's kind of how we did it. And there's some clients that we do everything for. There's some that it's certain services that are there because they may have somebody internally that are doing this service or that service. It's really customized to the client, whatever their needs are. Obviously, we would love every client to have all of our services, but it's not reality. It's just not
Mhm.
reality because every company is different. They're different sizes. They have different priorities.
Yeah, I think that's really amazing, and I love what you said about no, but that gets us in the foot. That gets our foot in the door, right? They
Mhm.
need us for marketing. Well, 2 years from now, we're helping them with IT, cybersecurity, and compliance, right?
Right.
So, and vice versa. So, I think that makes a lot of sense. You provide an ecosystem or a suite of services and solutions. Um, you mentioned earlier that you founded Balance Logic because you were working at this other company and you discovered this process, this successful working model, and you replicated it with your own company. I'm curious about what was your journey before founding Balance Logic. I noticed you mentioned Marine Corps. I'm very curious where that piece fits in the puzzle here too.
Yeah, it's a huge piece. So after high school, I joined the Marine Corps and I spent roughly 9 years in the Marine Corps. And I take a lot of those lessons and a lot of that methodology in running this company. I give an example of, you have your infantrymen and then the support to come behind it. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I got a job as a director of IT, worked there for a little bit, wasn't really my thing. I'm not big on red tape or politics and things like that. And then so I switched companies. I became an IT manager for another large organization,
A quick
and
question.
then yeah.
When you mentioned the red tape and the politics, was that a different experience from when you were in the Marine Corps? Is that why it
Uh,
was a shock?
No, it wasn't really a shock. It was similar yet different, right? In the Marine Corps, you know that you have to do X, Y, and Z because that's the culture. You're told to do something, you do it, and that's just the way it is. There's no argument, there's no questioning. It's just what you do. You're trained that way. Whereas in the civilian world, you have people telling you to do something just because they have the power, not because it's the right thing, not because it's the proficient or efficient thing to do. It's just because they're in power and they're in charge and they say do it. And that doesn't make
Yikes.
sense to me. In the Marine Corps, it made sense to me, right? That was the culture we build. There's a reason. If you hesitate, people die. It's just the mentality, right? You do what you're told to do. There's a reason why you do it, and you know that in your head.
And
In
I'm
the
sure
civilian,
leadership, there's a lot more accountability and processes and
exactly.
balance of power in check versus I feel like this case where, oh, I'm just going to tell people to do it because I feel like it because I have the power, that there may be systems in place to prevent that from happening in the
In the
military.
military, absolutely. I'm not saying it's foolproof. I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
but the difference is the culture. You have that mindset. You're trained that mindset. You know that's what you're supposed to do. It's a way of life. It's not a job. The military is a way of life. So you
Mm-hmm.
accept that, right? In the civilian world, it's the complete opposite. There's zero accountability if your boss just tells you to do this and do that, and you just do it. If not, you're fired, right? And you know you can go down that bad path. But I'm not one to stand for, I'm a leader, I'm not a follower. So I'm not going to stand for somebody just tell me what to do just because they want to tell me what to do. And I know the better thing to do is this. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying that I have a problem with authority. I'm not saying that I'm not going to do what I'm supposed to do. But if I know blatantly they're just having me do things
Yeah.
because it's they're in the position of power, that makes absolutely no sense to me. My goal is to make the company better, to do my job the most effective and possible way I can. That's what I'm getting paid for. So those challenges were different. And I went to another company as management there as well, and that was just a difference of leadership. You know, I'm big on leadership, and I believe that you take care of your team, your staff, just like you do your family, right? So that didn't work out, and then I said, you know what,
Oh wow.
I'm ready to start my own company, but I'm not quite sure I have enough executive experience. So I decided, let me go take another job. I took a job as a CIO, VP CIO of a government contractor. Great organization, learned a ton. They were actually my very first client when I started my own company. But then I was like, okay, I got the executive experience. I got mid-level experience. I got military experience, and now I got executive experience. So I'm ready. So I took off from there and hardly any money in my savings account, and just jumped 2 feet in and started the company.
I can relate to that. That's how I started my first startup. Just no money. Just
Yeah,
go on a road trip and just see what happens. Meet people
exactly.
and talk to people. Um, what was the executive experience you thought or you felt you lacked? Did it materialize and it become, oh, it was actually this. This is what I lacked when you had that CIO experience. What was it, or did you have it all along? Right? What was it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in I'll back up to the military. In the military, like I had no problem. You're afraid of colonels and generals and the higher VIPs and things like that. Me, I never had a problem with that. I never had a problem with. I never got frightened or scared when the general came in or anything like that. Right. So I had that acumen of like they're people just like us. They're just more important, if you will, because they hold a different position. But they're just like me, right? So the difference was in the other two organizations, there was no interaction with executive management. They were up here, and that was, what they were viewed as, and there was zero interaction. And then in the other company, the last company I started, I had direct interaction with executives, and I was like, okay, before I was unsure, I was like, okay, I've been at a senior leadership position, but never really at the top level, right? I never
Mm-hmm.
was really at the top level. But when I got exposure to that, and I'm directly talking to the CEO and I'm directly talking to the executive VPs, and we're making decisions together and strategy together, I was like, okay, now I'm ready. I was missing that piece of experiencing that leadership at the very top level.
And just to make sure I understand the decision making process, the communication, the style. I'm also curious when you got into the executive position, if you, because you mentioned a problem being there's a disconnect between executive management and everybody else who works and executes. Did you develop and design a model that changed that dynamic, or
No, I didn't change anything. It was just it was a click in my head that was like, okay, this
oh
is what I'm missing. I'm missing,
ah
you know, because it's different when you're a first line manager or director, it's still very tactical.
yep.
But when you're at the executive level, it's more strategic,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's where I want to fill the gap in my leadership experiences. I've got a ton of technical experience, but I wanted that strategic leadership experience firsthand, right? So once I gained that experience and got that exposure, now it's no stopping me, right? I got strategic experience, I got tactical experience, And the whole time I've learned from all the leaders that I have, and I took little pieces of their leadership style that I liked and I wanted to implement and kind of created my own leadership style, if you will.
Interesting, interesting. I have so many questions. I want to go back to what something you said earlier, which is um, one of the pain points that you had was leaders just telling people what to do because of politics, because they could do it. There was no accountability, there was no system in place. Um, when you became a leader yourself, is there a system or a culture, right, that you've developed that prevents that from happening? Because, maybe we had a bad day, right?
Yep.
And it just slips out, right? We end up doing something. But if you have a system in place, then, or, a process, then, uh, it could, and also preventing your peers from doing it as well, right? Or other folks in your management team. I'm curious, yeah, how your leadership style affects culture differently, perhaps.
Yeah, 100%. And it's very simple. It's not a process, it's a mentality. And the mentality is very simple. You have to understand what ticks your employees off and also what makes them tick. And once you understand that, you'll be able to lead effectively.
That's it.
That's it. Know
What's the
your people.
difference between what ticks your your team members off and what makes them tick?
Sure. I mean, what ticks them off? What is their persona? What is their personality? What are their likes and dislikes? How do they work? How do they learn? How do they like to be led? And what makes them tick is what gets them motivated. What drives them, right? You have to know their personality from both angles. And because you can't lead somebody you don't know, right? So you have to understand them and understand what they want to be part of. Now, with that being said, not everybody is a fit for the organization, right? Because some people's personalities are just not a fit for the culture that we're building,
Hmm.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
No, if everybody was the same, life would be boring. So, so that's the model I follow. And I mean, obviously, there's a lot more. We don't lead on fear; we lead on empowerment, right? It's just like how we sell. It's about educating and empowering. It's not about who's in charge or I'm in a bigger position or I make more money than you. It's not about that at all.
Hmm. Um, I'm curious. Nine. No, you said 30 years. Yeah, 19 years at Balance Logic. 30 years experience total. Um, I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. Did you? Where did your sense of leadership come from? I'm sure that you've built it over time, right? And you mentioned learning from various people that you worked with, very intentionally worked with those people too. But is there even farther back? Uh, were you always a leader? Were you always, looking out to learn about leadership? Or was there something that hit you that said, oh, like this is the impact of a leader. I want to be that.
Yeah, yeah. I think we'll take the therapist role here. It goes back to childhood, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So kind of personal. Growing up, grew up in a really bad neighborhood, and didn't have a lot of money and things, and my parents weren't around a lot. So from a very young age, I had to fend for myself. So I was forced into leadership in from a point of view of, hey, I'm not being led. Either I'm going to go down this road and not be very happy, or I'm going to reach down, grab a hold, take charge, and kind of create my own direction and move forward. And I think ever since then, my whole leadership style, my whole mentality is, you know, focus on leadership, focus on taking care of the people that mean the most, that are helping you be successful, and never, ever, ever forget where you came from.
Wow. Thank you, Bill, for that. Um, as I'm learning more and more and growing as a person myself, I'm starting to understand a lot of my personality comes from my childhood. A lot of my drive and motivation comes from it. I even had a period of my time where I was running away from it, and that led me to make some successes and also a lot of failures. And I think just hearing you just yeah, that was it. Like that, and have that grasp of it was very, very eye opening for me. So yeah, thank you for that. Um, the other sort of adjacent question I have around that is, what would you say have been your most important learnings as you've gone through this journey and this career and even your personal journey, right?
Good question. Take a second to think about that.
Yeah.
Um, I think one thing I've learned, life lesson is, even though you may think you have friends, at the end of the day, everybody's out for themselves. That's been a huge lesson for me with staff and friends and family. Um, you know, so that's a big lesson. And I think the other one is no matter where you come from or what you do or what your upbringing was, whether a silver spoon or whether it was in the worst neighborhood, where I came from, if you want to do something, only you can make yourself successful because you have the world at your fingertips, especially today. If you're 65 years old and you decide you want to change careers, you have all the resources, education right at your fingertips, and only you can decide to move forward. And that was a lesson that I had to learn, was like, nobody, that you can't ride a wave and just hope things will happen. you know I always say something in the office here, and people always give me cross-eyed looks when I say it, but I always say change cannot happen without change. And basically that means is if you don't, if you want to move forward, a change has to happen. So if if you want to be successful, whatever that means to you, right, then you can do it. If you want to learn a new skill, you can absolutely do it. It's all about effort and passion.
100%. Um, I, I hate to talk myself this much, but no, I totally agree. Like I think I got stuck in my career at one point, and I was like, why is nothing changing? Why is nothing new happening? Why are new opportunities happening? Or why is growth not happening? And I found that I just needed to change. One, give myself space to even recognize the change, right? The change I could be making, like going on a road trip and just leaving and going somewhere else just to be away from the current environment, and then go, hey, what if I do this differently? And then that starts to lead into change that affects me, right? Change within myself causes change in results. And it's really easy to get stuck and doing the same thing. So easy. And just get stuck in a rut. But you mentioned passion. I'm curious, Bill, what else are you passionate about besides, work? I don't know. I was about to say leadership. I don't know if you can really separate that from yourself, but
Right.
besides the stuff we've talked about, just curious.
Yeah, personally, martial arts is a big part of my life. I'm big into the UFC. I'm a practicing martial arts for several, I mean, since I've been a teenager. So
Wow.
martial arts is big passion of mine. Now in today's, world is MMA, mixed martial arts, and huge fan of that. So I think that's a big passion for me.
Do you teach or
I used to teach. Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
wow, wow.
yeah, yeah.
Very cool. I used to be a student, so
Oh, okay.
you remind me of one of my teachers.
Yeah,
Very cool,
yeah.
very cool. Um, yeah, I guess I mean the last one's not really a question, but I was just curious. Like, did you grow up in Maryland? Because I grew up in the Reston. I went to Langley High School. I grew up in the same area. My brother goes to UMD. So,
Yeah, no, I actually moved to Maryland after I got out of the Marine Corps. I grew up in Philly.
oh, nice, nice. Yeah, so not too far a drive.
Not too far. No,
Yeah.
not far at all.
Very, very cool. Well, gosh, that's the end of our podcast. I feel like you've given us so much in such a condensed format. I really, really appreciate it. I feel like yeah, that was very. I absorbed a lot just through osmosis from hearing you.
Awesome.
What's the best way to reach you, and who should reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to, maintain and grow your company, take your company to the next level, or if you're just anybody working or an individual and you want more information about any of the things that we offer or any knowledge that I have, I'm more than happy to pass that down. Our website's balancelogic.com. You can reach us at 301-396-8455, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm open to anybody connecting on LinkedIn.
Awesome. All the contact information will be in the description. And for my last shameless plug, hey listeners, are you an MSP and want to win new clients and help your existing clients meet compliance? Get your free automated risk assessments today at telivy.com. Special promotion for podcast listeners. That's you. If you like Telivy and want to run automated risk assessments for more clients and more endpoints, let us know where you came from the podcast and we'll give you 20% off the upgrade. All right. Thank you so much, Bill, for sharing your life, your career, your mind, and how you approach problems. Been very, very educational. Thank you so much, Bill.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'll see you all next time. Thank you.